There exists a day on the calendar that is different from all of the others. There exists a day when the entire world comes to a pause, when families gather together, when celebrations matter in ways that they do not matter on any other day. There exists a day called Christmas, and on this specific Christmas, in an arena full of energy and history, something extraordinary was about to happen. A Christmas game in the NBA. It is not a common game. It is a game when the entire world is watching, when families that normally do not watch basketball are watching, when the celebration of sport connects to the celebration of family, of reunion, of this moment. Steph Curry was on the court, and you can perceive when someone is in a state of flow, when each movement is correct, when each decision is perfect, when it is as if he is in conversation with the game in a language that only he comprehends. Warriors versus a rival team. The game was competitive, but Curry was playing at a level that transcended normal competition. Curry was creating basketball. Curry was innovating in real time. Curry was doing things that only Curry can do, and you can perceive when someone is approaching something extraordinary, when the energy of the arena shifts slightly, when there is anticipation that something historic is about to happen. Curry receives the ball, moves quickly, creates space that no one thought existed, shoots a three-pointer from a distance that seemed impossible. The ball leaves his hands perfectly. The arc is perfect. The rotation is perfect. And the ball goes into the net. You can perceive when a ball goes into the net in a way that is definitive. There is no doubt. There is no question. It is pure basketball. And somewhere in the broadcast, someone is watching the number that appears on the screen. Someone is watching the statistic that is accumulating. Someone is watching something that changes everything. 26,000 points. And it is impossible not to notice when a number is that number. When a statistic reaches a mark that is extraordinary. When someone in the history of basketball enters a category that few will ever enter. The arena comes to a stop. You can perceive when the entire world recognizes that something historic has happened. When there is a moment of pause that is reverent. That is pure recognition. The game host makes an announcement, and you can hear when a voice is loaded with meaning. Steph Curry has just reached 26,000 points in his career, and it is impossible not to feel when an announcement reverberates through an arena, when it reverberates through the entire world, when it reverberates through time, because this is not a common number. This is a historic milestone. The stadium explodes. You can perceive when the crowd understands that they have witnessed something that will be remembered, that will be recalled, that will be part of basketball history. Curry's teammates run to embrace him. There is celebration. There is pure joy. There is recognition that someone has reached an extraordinary place. Cameras focus on Curry. The entire world is watching this. Billions of people who are watching live perceive that they are watching a historic moment. They perceive that they are watching someone reach a mark that defines a legacy. And you can perceive when celebration is genuine. When it is not merely protocol. It is collective understanding that something extraordinary has been achieved. 26,000 points. It is a number that connects Curry to the lineage of the greatest. It is a number that places him in a category with players who redefined the game. It is a number that says to the world, this man was extraordinary. But while the arena celebrates the number, there is a man who is seeing something that no one else was seeing in that moment. Klay Thompson is in the arena. He is not on the court. He is in the crowd, or he is on the bench. He is somewhere where he can see his teammate. He is somewhere where he can witness the moment. And Klay Thompson is not celebrating the number. Klay Thompson is seeing beyond the number. You can perceive when someone sees depth that others do not see, when they can see through the surface, when they understand the real meaning of something that the entire world is celebrating. Because Klay Thompson knows Curry, not merely as a teammate, but as a warrior brother, as someone who fought alongside him, as someone who suffered the same battles. Klay saw each fall of Curry, saw each injury, saw each moment when the world questioned whether Curry would return, saw each extra workout, saw each moment of doubt. And when Klay sees 26,000 points shining on the scoreboard, Klay does not see merely a number shining. Klay sees the work that was done. Klay sees the sacrifice that was made. Klay sees the character that was demonstrated. Because Klay knows the cost of that journey. Because Klay also faced serious injuries. Because Klay also questions whether it is all worth it. Because Klay knows that reaching 26,000 points is not about ability. It is about the capacity to not give up. And you can perceive when someone who truly understands is watching, when they are seeing beyond the surface, when they are seeing truth. The arena continues celebrating. The entire world continues celebrating. Music plays. Cameras flash. Colors explode. Celebration is chaotic and joyful and genuine. But there is Klay Thompson, who is watching Curry with a quality in his eyes that is different from the crowd. There is Klay Thompson, who is seeing his warrior brother reach an extraordinary place. There is Klay Thompson, who is understanding that there is something that needs to be said. Because Klay knows something that the entire world does not know. The world celebrates the number. But Klay understands that there is a story behind the number. There is sacrifice behind the number. There is character behind the number. And Klay understands also that Curry is in an arena full of people celebrating. But there is loneliness in that celebration. Because the celebration is of the number. But the question that Curry is probably asking is, was it worth it? You can perceive when someone understands the true question, when they can see beyond the appearance of joy, when they can see doubt that exists even in a moment of great celebration. And Klay decides that he will do something that few would do. He will leave the arena. He will find Curry privately. He will remove Curry from public celebration. He will have a conversation that is between two men who understand the real weight of what has been achieved. Because Klay knows that there is validation that can come only from someone who truly understands. There is a word that needs to be said. There is recognition that needs to be made. And you can perceive when someone is about to do something extraordinary, when they are about to remove their teammate from public celebration and give private validation that matters more than collective celebration. The arena continues in celebration. The crowd continues applauding. The entire world continues seeing 26,000 on the scoreboard shining as a symbol of excellence. But there is a conversation that is about to happen that will transform that number from a symbol of a statistic into a symbol of resilience, of sacrifice, of character that was necessary to get there. Because there is a difference between the world celebrating a number and a warrior brother validating sacrifice. Because you know when someone needs to speak with you about something that really matters? It is when they are not concerned with timing. It is when they understand that truth cannot wait. It is when they know that there is something that must be said. And Klay Thompson knew that he needed to speak with Curry in that moment. Celebration continued in the arena. But Klay moved, left his place, searched for Curry. And when he found him, there was a quality in his eyes that was intentional. That was purposeful. "Steph," said Klay, and when he said the name, There was a quality in his voice that was serious. It was not celebratory. It was important. And you can perceive when someone has something that needs to be said, when it is not casual, when it is significant. "I need to talk with you," continued Klay, "away from all of this." And it is impossible not to notice when someone is being called to a private moment, when there is understanding that there will be a conversation that matters more than public celebration. Curry followed Klay. They left the arena, away from cameras, away from celebration, away from the entire world that was celebrating the number on the scoreboard. And in a private space, when the noise of celebration became only a distant echo, Klay began to speak truth. "You know," began Klay, "and you can perceive when someone is about to reveal deep understanding. Everyone is in there celebrating 26,000 points. And that is cool. Numbers matter." Klay made a pause, and the pause was intentional. It was space for truth to be prepared. "But," continued Klay, "and you can hear when a word carries different weight, it is not the 26,000 points that I am seeing. And it is impossible not to feel when someone is about to name something that is more important than a number, when they will go beyond the surface. I am seeing the work that was done to get here," said Klay. "I am seeing each workout, each injury that you overcame, each moment when you questioned whether you were capable of coming back. And you can perceive when truth is being communicated with real understanding, when it is not rhetoric, it is recognition of a journey." "Because I was part of that journey, Steph," continued Klay, and there was vulnerability in his voice also. "I was here seeing each step. I saw you deal with injuries. I saw you try to come back, when no one knew whether you could. I saw you dealing with doubt that no one sees in public. And it is impossible not to notice when someone who was present is witnessing, when it is not casual observation. It is attentive observation of a teammate." Klay articulated specifically moments that he observed. "I saw you in that moment when you were injured and questioned whether you would come back the same as before. I saw you in extra workouts that no one was watching. I saw you choosing to continue when it was easy to stop. I saw you asking whether you really deserved to be there. I saw you facing doubt that no one could comprehend. And you can perceive when someone is naming specific sacrifices, when they are revealing that they observed deeply, when they are witnessing the true journey. And do you know what is really impressive about 26,000 points?" asked Klay, and it was a question that was revelation in itself. Curry was listening. He was processing each word, because there was a quality in Klay's voice that was honest. "It is not ability," continued Klay. "Ability was always there. You were always extraordinary in abilities. The world always knew this." Klay made a pause, and the pause was loaded. "It is character," said Klay clearly. "It is resilience. It is willingness to continue when the world questioned. It is capacity to not give up when giving up was an option that was there, very clear, very available. And it is impossible not to feel when fundamental truth is being communicated, when someone who went through the same battles is naming a quality that goes beyond numbers. "Do you know how many people would have stopped?" asked Klay, and it was a question that was teaching. "How many people would have said, 'This is enough. Now I will protect the legacy that I have. I will do what is safe'? How many people would have let doubt win and said, 'I have already done enough'?" Klay let the question float in the air, because it was not a question that needs an immediate answer. It was a question that was truth being communicated through interrogation. "But you did not stop," said Klay, and you can hear authority in his voice. "You continued, and I see this every day. And I respect you not for 26,000 points. I respect you for the character that was necessary to get there. And you can perceive when respect is communicated with genuineness, when it is not empty praise, it is deep recognition. Because I understand that you sacrificed, continued Klay, and there was a quality that was vulnerability also, because I sacrificed also. Because we both know what it means to fight to come back. We know the weight of that fight in a way that few people know. And it is impossible not to notice when someone who went through the same battles is validating you. When they are saying, I understand because I lived this too. I had serious injuries, said Klay, articulating truth that is part of his own story. I questioned whether I would come back. I questioned whether I deserved to play again. And when I see you continue, despite doubt, despite difficulty, despite a world that sometimes questions whether you are clutch or resilient, when I see you ignore those voices and continue, I see someone who has something that few people have. And you can perceive when someone is articulating admiration that is specific, that is based on real understanding of difficulty. Therefore, said Klay, and there was a quality that was definitive in his voice. When the world celebrates 26,000 points, it is celebrating a number. It is celebrating a statistic. It is celebrating a historic mark. Klay made a pause, and when he continued, there was a quality that was revelation. But when I see 26,000 points, I am seeing a warrior brother who did not give up. I am seeing someone who chose to continue, even when continuing was the most difficult thing. I am seeing character being expressed in a number. And that is something truly extraordinary. And you can perceive when someone is making a statement that is official. When they are saying, you are not just a player, you are a warrior. Because numbers come and go, continued Klay, and there was a quality in his voice that was teaching. Records are broken, marks are reached, and then they are surpassed. But character is something that remains. Character is something that defines true legacy. And it is impossible not to feel when truth is communicated that transforms. When someone is redefining what really matters. And you, said Klay, looking directly at Curry, you have character that is rare. You have willingness to continue that inspires. And when I see you at 26,000 points, I see this. I see not the number. I see a man who chose not to give up. Curry was beginning to process emotionally, because there was a quality in Klay's voice that was honest, because Klay was not merely speaking. Klay was witnessing. Klay was validating sacrifice that few people understand. And that is something that I need you to know, continued Klay, and you can perceive when someone is preparing important truth. Because you are in an arena full of people celebrating a number. And that is good. But there is doubt that you are probably feeling also. There is a question that you are probably asking also. And it is impossible not to notice when someone understands the real question behind the celebration, when they can see beyond the appearance of joy. There is a question whether it was all worth it, said Klay, naming clear doubt. There is a question whether sacrifices were fair. There is a question whether you deserve to go through everything through which you went. And you can perceive when someone is naming doubt that is so common that no one wants to talk about, when they are having the courage to put it into words. And I am here to say, continued Klay, and there was absolute clarity in his voice, that it was worth it. Not because 26,000 is a big number, It was worth it because you did not give up. It was worth it because you continued. It was worth it because you chose to sacrifice to be extraordinary. And it is impossible not to feel when validation is communicated with power. When someone you respect is saying, "Yes, it was worth it." "Because I understand the cost," continued Klay. "I understand what it means to be under constant pressure. I understand what it means to question whether you are good enough. I understand what it means to fight to come back and question whether you will come back the same way." Klay breathed, and when he continued, there was vulnerability that was clear. "And when I see you here, having reached 26,000, having survived everything that you had to survive, having overcome everything that you had to overcome, when I see you here, I see someone who deserved it. I see someone whose journey was valid. I see someone who justifies each sacrifice. And you can perceive when someone is making a statement that is sealing of truth, when they are validating the complete journey. Therefore," said Klay, "when the world celebrates 26,000 points, let them celebrate. Numbers are important. Statistics matter. But you know something that they perhaps do not know. You know that 26,000 is not just a number. It is a testament of character. It is a monument to resilience. It is validation that choosing to continue was correct. And you can perceive when someone is offering validation that is complete. When they are saying, 'I saw, I understand, and yes, it was worth it.' Because you know when someone is being truly seen. It is when tears come, when defenses fall, when understanding of oneself is reflected in the eyes of another. It is when validation is not just words, it is transformation. And Steph Curry was about to be seen in a way that few people can be seen. Curry was processing each word that Klay had said. He was letting truth penetrate. He was understanding that there was someone there who truly understood, who was not celebrating the number. He was honoring sacrifice. And you can perceive when someone is beginning to release emotion that had been contained, when defenses are beginning to fall, when truth was reaching a deep place. Curry could not maintain composure immediately, because there is weight in being truly understood. There is power in someone you respect saying, "I saw, I understand, and it was valid." And Curry began to process this emotionally. "I," began Curry, and there was a quality in his voice that was breakable. That was vulnerable. That was human. Words did not come easily. Because how do you verbalize the relief that comes from being validated by someone who truly understands? How do you put into words the feeling of being truly seen? "I," tried again Curry, and you can perceive when someone is processing emotion so large that language fails. And it is impossible not to feel when someone is genuinely moved. When validation is so deep that it transcends professionalism. When recognition is so genuine that it transforms a person completely. Curry was in tears now. Not tears of sadness, tears of relief, of validation, of understanding that the journey was seen, that sacrifice was recognized, that character was honored. And you can perceive when tears come from a place that is true. When it is not performative, it is pure emotional recognition of truth. Klay saw Curry in tears, and instead of being made uncomfortable by emotion, Klay continued. Because Klay understood that tears were necessary. That emotion was doing work that needed to be done. "I know that this is a lot," said Klay, and there was a quality in his voice that was gentle. That was understanding. Because you are under constant pressure. The entire world wants more, wants bigger numbers, wants even greater. excellence. Klay continued, articulating truth that few people verbalized. But no one mentions the cost of that pressure. No one mentions the personal sacrifices that you make. No one mentions moments when you question whether it is all worth it. When you question whether you deserve to go through this. And you can perceive when someone who truly understands is naming something that is taboo. That is truth that no one wants to say in public. Because there is loneliness at that top, continued Klay. There is doubt in that excellence. There is a question in that success that the entire world cannot see. Klay breathed. And when he continued, there was a quality that was vulnerability also. And when I am here and I see you cry, said Klay, I understand that those tears are tears of someone who knows the real weight of what they did, who knows the cost, who truly understands what was necessary to get here. And it is impossible not to feel when someone is giving permission to cry. When they are saying, it is okay to recognize the weight of this. It is okay if emotion wins, because emotion is validation that this really mattered. And this, continued Klay, this is what makes you truly great. Not points, not statistics, not numbers on the scoreboard. It is real understanding of the sacrifice that was made. It is visceral recognition of the cost. Curry was beginning to be able to speak because there was being given space, because it was safe. No one really talks about this, said Curry through tears. No one mentions the pressure. No one mentions the moments when you question everything. And you can perceive when someone is finally being able to vocalize things that they had been carrying in silence, when it had been guarded because there was no safe space to speak. I feel constant pressure, continued Curry, and there was a quality that was admission. Pressure to continue. Pressure to be better. Pressure to not disappoint anyone. My teammates. My family. My fans. The entire world that is watching. Curry articulated truth that he carried. And sometimes I question whether it is worth it. Whether the sacrifice is fair. Whether I deserve to go through the injuries that I went through. Whether I deserve to have the doubt that I had. And you can perceive when someone is finally saying truth that had been guarded. When they are being vulnerable in a way that is rarely public. Klay heard each word. And instead of trying to soften doubt, Klay legitimized it. It was worth it, said Klay, with absolute clarity. Not because 26,000 is a big number. It was worth it because you did not give up. Because you continued when it was easy to stop. Because you chose to sacrifice to be extraordinary. And you can perceive when someone is destroying doubt with truth. When they are legitimizing suffering while simultaneously redefining its meaning. Because you know, continued Klay, how many people would have stopped? How many people would have said, this is enough, now I will protect what I have? How many people would have let doubt win? Klay made a pause, and the pause had weight. But you did not stop, said Klay simply. And that is the thing that defines character. It is the thing that defines true greatness. Curry was processing this. He was letting validation penetrate. He was understanding that the truth that Klay was communicating was truth that he himself felt, but could not say. And you can perceive when someone is receiving validation that changes perspective. When they are beginning to see their own sacrifice differently. And when I see you here, continued Klay, having reached 26,000, having survived everything that you survived, having overcome everything that you overcame, when I see you here, and I see tears of someone who truly understands the cost, that tells me that you deserved it, that your journey was valid, that each sacrifice was justified. And it is impossible not to feel when validation is complete, when someone is saying, yes, it was worth it, because I see, because I understand, because I also suffered. Curry and Klay embraced, and you can perceive when an embrace is not casual, when it is sealing of understanding, when it is recognition between two men who know the real weight of what it is to be great. And you can perceive when an embrace between warriors is different from a common embrace, because there is understanding that is passed through physical contact. That is communicated without words. "You are a warrior brother," said Klay when the embrace ended. "And the world needs to know this. But before anything else, you need to know this." And you can perceive when someone is naming fundamental truth. That internal validation is more important than external celebration. Curry understood, because there was a difference between the entire world validating a number and someone who truly understood. Validating character. The first was external celebration. The second was internal transformation. "Thank you," said Curry simply. And there was a quality in his voice that was pure gratitude. For having seen, for having understood, for having said this. And you can perceive when thank you is communicated with weight, when it is not formality. It is genuine recognition that something was transformed through validation. "Always," said Klay, "because we are warrior brothers, and brothers see each other. Brothers understand each other, and brothers honor each other when the world is only celebrating numbers." And you can perceive when someone is articulating the essence of true friendship, when they are naming that true validation comes from someone who knows the truth. And in that private space, away from the arena, away from cameras, away from the entire world celebrating the number, in that space, there was validation that was greater than any public celebration could be, because there was someone who saw beyond the number. There was someone who honored sacrifice. There was someone who said, "You are extraordinary, not for points, but for character that was necessary to get here." And that validation was everything. Because you know when a moment is truly historic, it is not when it happens in real time. It is after, when the world understands that something was altered permanently. It is when the narrative is resignified. It is when understanding changes forever. And the entire world understood this in the minutes and hours that followed Klay's recognition. A video of Curry and Klay left the private space. There was no intention of the entire world seeing that sacred moment. But in a world of cameras, of instantaneous sharing, the private moment became public. And when the world saw the video, the world did not see merely a basketball player in tears. The world saw someone being truly validated. The world saw character being honored. The world saw 26,000 points being resignified. You can perceive when a narrative changes fundamentally. When something that was celebration of a number becomes a testament of resilience. When a statistic becomes a story. The clip began to go viral. Within minutes, millions of views. Within hours, billions. Within a day, it was global conversation in basketball. But it was not merely fans celebrating a number. It was the entire world recognizing truth that Klay had articulated, that there is a difference between celebration of a statistic and honor of character. Sports analysts began to discuss, but they were not discussing 26,000 as a number. They were discussing sacrifice. They were discussing resilience. They were discussing what it really means to be great. Coaches used the video as an example for their teams. Teachers used it as a lesson about true excellence. Business leaders used it as an example of genuine mentoring, because there was in the video something that transcended basketball. There was validation between two men who understood each other profoundly. There was recognition of character that was rare in a world that frequently only celebrates numbers. And you can perceive when something becomes universal, when it transcends its original context, when it touches something that is truly human. The narrative about 26,000 changed radically. Before, Curry reaches 26,000 points, historic mark, extraordinary number. After, Curry reaches 26,000 points, testament of sacrifice, character, resilience. Before, 26,000 is a number that places Curry among the greatest. After, 26,000 is a symbol of someone who did not give up when it was easy to give up. And you can perceive when a number is transformed through narrative, when context changes everything. Curry received thousands of messages, but they were not messages about 26,000. They were messages about what the video meant, about what it meant to be truly validated. "Thank you for showing that the pressure that we feel is real," wrote one person. "Thank you for showing that it is okay to question whether it is worth it." "This changed how I understand excellence," wrote another. "It is not about numbers. It is about character to continue." And you can perceive when someone communicates that something was transformed. That perspective was altered. That validation had real impact. Klay received recognition also, because few people do what Klay did. Few people remove someone from public celebration to honor private character. Few people understand that true validation comes from another warrior. "This is what true mentoring means," wrote analysts. "Not protecting your own legacy, honoring the legacy of another." And you can perceive when something that was personal becomes universal, when the lesson between two men becomes the lesson for the entire world. Months later, Curry was asked about the moment at the entrevue, an interview. His response was revealing. "When Klay did what he did, something changed," said Curry, "because there was a difference between the world celebrating a number and someone who truly understood validating sacrifice. The world celebrated a statistic. Klay celebrated my humanity." Curry continued his reflection. "And that liberated me in a way that I did not expect. Because I understood that 26,000 is not about being better than someone. It is about not giving up when it was easy to give up. And when I compare this, I understand my own legacy differently." And you can perceive when genuine validation changes someone's understanding of themselves, when it transforms internal narrative. Klay, for his part, also did an interview. He was asked why he decided to do what he did. "Because I understand," said Klay. "I understand that when you are at the top, when the entire world is celebrating you, there is loneliness, there is doubt, there is a question whether it is all worth it. There is weight that no one sees in public." Klay continued. "And when I understood that Curry was feeling this also, I understood that my job was simple. It was to be there and say, 'You are not alone. I saw. I understand. And it matters. Your sacrifice matters. Your character matters. You matter.' And you can perceive when someone understands the true function of validation, that it is not empty praise. It is recognition of shared struggle. The legacy of 26,000 became a shared legacy between Curry and Klay, because both understood something that few people understand, that there is a difference between being celebrated and being seen, that there is a difference between a statistic and character. And you can perceive when a number is transformed into a symbol. When 26,000 ceases to be a historic mark of Curry's achievement to become a shared mark of two warriors who understand each other. Years later, in a basketball academy somewhere in the IO world, a coach showed the video to his athletes, not to talk about technique, to talk about resilience, to talk about the true meaning of excellence. "This is what it means to be great," said the coach. "Not just numbers. Character to continue, willingness to sacrifice, and understanding that true validation comes from someone who really knows the path. And you can perceive when something becomes part of education, when it continues to educate future generations, when impact is lasting." A young player who watched the video understood something that perhaps they never would have understood in any other way. They understood that when they became great, it would not be because of numbers. It would be because of character to continue, and that the responsibility of being great was to recognize character in another. And when that young player became a professional player, when they faced injuries of their own, when they questioned their own path, when they remembered the video of Curry and Klay, they understood that they were not alone. They understood that there were generations before them who had also questioned, who had also sacrificed, who had also been validated by someone who understood. Curry, years later, reflected on 26,000 not as a number, but as a moment when he was truly seen. "That number will always be remembered," said Curry, "but it will not be remembered for how many zeros it has. It will be remembered because in that moment, when the entire world was celebrating a number, there was someone who celebrated my humanity." Curry continued, "And that difference between celebration of a number and honor of character, that difference transformed how I understand my own legacy. Because legacy is not about points. Legacy is about understanding that you did not give up, that you faced doubt, that you continued despite everything. And you can perceive when a legacy is resignified, when a number becomes a story, when a statistic becomes a lesson about resilience. Documentaries about basketball began to document the moment. Historians of sport analyzed its meaning. Teachers of leadership used the video as an example of true mentoring. Sports psychologists used it as a case study about genuine validation. The moment became an object of study. It became a lesson about how the great honor the great, how mentors recognize successors, how knowledge about true excellence is passed from generation to generation through genuine respect instead of competition. And this is how truth changes the world. Not through spectacular change, but through a moment in which someone with genuine understanding says truth with such clarity that the entire world recognizes. When a warrior brother validates their teammate. When character is honored above a number. When the torch of truth is passed with intentionality and respect. Steph Curry did not merely reach 26,000 points. Steph Curry was validated in a way that no number could ever validate. Because there was someone who saw beyond the statistic. There was a warrior brother who honored sacrifice. And when this happens, the entire world understands. There is no threat in recognizing different excellence. There is only continuation. There is only shared legacy. There is only appropriate passage of understanding between generations that respect each other. Steph Curry reached 26,000 points on Christmas. And when Klay Thompson recognized not the number, but the character necessary to get there, when he did this publicly for the entire world to hear, he transformed not merely the narrative of the number. He transformed how the entire world would understand excellence. He transformed how the entire world would understand validation. He transformed how the entire world would understand the true meaning of being great. Because true legacy is not that you reached 26,000 points. True legacy is that there was someone who understood you deeply, who honored your sacrifice, who said you did not give up. And this is extraordinary. This is what happened on that Christmas, and the world will never forget.